I wanted to start this video by establishing that I am a huge DC fan. I want NetherRealm's next title to be Injustice 3 more than any other possibility. I got my channel initially started making Injustice 2 videos. It's a game that I love from top to bottom, and I would absolutely love to go back to making Injustice content as soon as an Injustice 3 was announced. There are plenty of characters that I would love to see in that game, plenty of features I would like to see in that game, and I say this without a hint of irony. It would be a dream come true to have an Injustice 3. So remember, regardless of anything else that I say in this video, first and foremost, I love DC Comics and their characters. Up until recently, I would have said that Injustice 3 is the most likely title to be announced as NetherRealm's next game. After all, the release pattern suggests that Injustice 3 is next in line. The Injustice series sells very well, so there's a money incentive right there. But today in this video, I'm going to play sort of a devil's advocate. To catch you up on everything really quickly, Summer Games Fest is happening right now. Summer Games Fest is a multi-month event being hosted by Geoff Keighley. The idea of the event is that they bring in a bunch of people from companies that are in the industry to talk about their upcoming games. Geoff Keighley's trying to provide the E3 time of year feel without actually having E3. Already, despite being in the early parts of Summer Games Fest, we've gotten quite a lot from it. There was the reveal of Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 Remaster. There was the reveal of Unreal Engine 5. Valorant, Riot's upcoming FPS, revealed their release date at Summer Games Fest, along with, I believe, a new map and a new agent, or at least they teased it or something like that. And most recently, Geoff Keighley did an interview with the one and only Ed Boon. Sorry about this, I have to interrupt the past version of me. I recorded this almost a week ago now. The most recent thing to happen at Summer Games Fest is not the interview I'm going to be talking about, because since recording this video, there was another announcement at Summer Games Fest, which was Wild Rift, which is the mobile version of League of Legends. It looks pretty cool, and it's not really relevant for this video. I just thought I'd mention that just in case I had someone run to the comments and tell me that I was wrong and that Mortal Kombat was not the most recent thing at Summer Games Fest. That's just because I recorded the video earlier. Anyway, not important. Enjoy the rest of the video. Now, this interview was mostly about the release of Mortal Kombat Aftermath, which is kind of like a DLC expansion to Mortal Kombat. It's adding new characters and a new section of the story mode. But I don't cover Mortal Kombat, so I won't be going over everything that happened in this video. In fact, I only want to focus on one specific aspect of this interview. But before I show you the clip I want to talk about, I want to give you an idea of what the atmosphere was like in this interview. It was very, very laid back. I'm sure Geoff Keighley had some important notes written down about questions and various things, but for the most part, I think this was off the cuff, especially towards the end. With that said, I want to focus on this one question. Well, I say it was a question, it wasn't even really a question, it was just kind of Ed Boon and Geoff Keighley talking back and forth. It kind of felt like a podcast chat rather than like an official interview. Geoff Keighley is talking about how nice it is to see someone with such passion for a single game, someone who's been developing and working on this game and this franchise for so long and still continues to do so with all the passion in the world. This is a perfectly normal, a good, a fine question, but the way that Ed Boon answers it, it gets my brain running at like 100 miles an hour. There's a lot to dissect in what Ed Boon says, but let's just play the clip and let you hear it.
I've done all I can do, but for you, it's like, it feels like you're having as much fun as you were back in the day, or even more fun, probably, because now it's like, I'm sure you're getting licenses and things that like back in the day, people wouldn't even, take the meeting. And now like everyone wants to be in it probably.
Yeah. It's kind of like Mortal Kombat has become like, like the staple thing. It's like almost like Marvel. Like you don't expect the last Marvel game, the last Marvel movie to ever come out. They're just going to keep coming. And even though we've been able to scratch other itches, doing Injustice games and stuff, and we have other stuff in the oven.
So I cut the end of his statement off because he talks for another 40 seconds or so about Mortal Kombat 11, and we're not really focusing on that in this video. That's not what the conversation is about. But let's rewind for a moment. Ed Boon is a goddamn mastermind at the art of the troll. Here's that exact same statement written out more clearly. Mortal Kombat has become like a staple, kind of like a Marvel thing. You never expect the last Marvel movie to come out. They're just gonna keep coming. We've been able to scratch some other itches, like Injustice games and other stuff. We have some other stuff in the oven. Smiley face. Stop playing with my emotions, Ed Boon. Okay, let's work through the statement backwards. First of all, he mentions other stuff in the oven, probably referencing the game that he's working on. It's already been teased that NetherRealm is working on their next title, but what's interesting is that he separates it from Injustice. He specifically goes out of his way to mention that he's scratched other itches like Injustice and other stuff, and that other stuff is in the oven. It very much feels like a deconfirmation of Injustice. You can say I'm reading too much into that, but if you just write out that statement in a very clear and concise way, using the exact same words, but without like all the pauses and everything that happens in a regular conversation, I think the best explanation here is that he's not talking about Injustice 3, unless of course he just misspoke. So if it does turn out that Injustice 3 is the next game, this other stuff in the oven he's talking about has to be some type of bi-yearly thing that they do in between of their main projects, or it's just going to be like some type of one-off thing.
There have been some started and stopped Mortal Kombat remaster projects that just never saw the light of day.
How much would that take?
I'm not convinced that it wouldn't be like a novelty that people would like for about a week and then kind of move on.
But to like it for a week, they have to buy it.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, before we move into the rest of the statement, I want to take you back to a wonderful time. That wonderful time being April 4th, 2019. The reason it's so wonderful is because this was the release date of the Game Informer video with Ed Boon, specifically the 166 rapid fire question video. These Game Informer rapid fire question videos are very prone to industry soft leaks. What I mean by soft leaks is kind of like hints or suggestions that a game might be coming or a reveal might be coming. So for example, in the same type of video, it's the exact same format with the Call of Duty developers. The developers hinted at a Battle Royale game mode, and the interviewer himself even specifically said the name of the game mode that would later become the Battle Royale game mode of Call of Duty Modern Warfare, which was Warzone. Even in Ed Boon's rapid fire video, Ed Boon was asked about a Mortal Kombat movie, to which he confirmed that there is a script in place. And of course, we now know that that was obviously true because that movie exists. It actually exists in two different forms. There's two different Mortal Kombat movies coming. There's the Scorpion movie titled Mortal Kombat Legends, Scorpion's Revenge, and then of course there's the live action movie, which is currently being filmed here in my home country, Australia. But of all the 166 questions in Ed Boon's interview, the one I want to focus on the most, the one that I need you to hear, is this one.
Have you ever had one conversation with Marvel about making a fighting game?
Yes.
What? When?
I did. But I probably shouldn't talk about it.
Are you excited about that idea?
Oh God, yes. We would love to make like a Marvel fighting game or Marvel versus DC. I think would be the coolest.
So again, let's break this down. In text form, have you ever had one conversation with Marvel about making a fighting game? Yes. What? When? I did, but I probably shouldn't talk about it. Are you excited about that idea? Oh God, yes. We would love to make a Marvel fighting game or a Marvel vs. DC game. I think that would be the coolest. Now let me present to you the theory in a timeline. Sometime before April 4th, Ed Boon had a conversation with Marvel about making a fighting game. I'm guessing in that conversation he probably brought up the idea of Marvel vs. DC, as he specifically mentions it would be, quote, the coolest in the Game Informer video. I'm gonna go ahead and assume that that conversation went very well. Perhaps not the DC versus Marvel side, but at least the Marvel fighting game part. Now the reason I think it had the potential to have gone pretty well for Ed Boon is because he was very quick to back off of that conversation as soon as he confirmed that that conversation initially happened. He was also very gleeful to bring up the conversation in the first place, or to have it be brought up. He didn't bring it up, of course the interviewer is the one that brought it up. And of course he was very gleeful as soon as the topic was brought up because he had good news. It's possible he just brought it up because the conversation happened, even though the conversation didn't go well, but he seemed pretty happy that the conversation was happening, so I can't imagine it went poorly. Now we don't have an exact date of the Marvel conversation. We don't know when it happened, but we do know that the interview happened with Game Informer on April 4th, or at least that's when it was published. It might have even happened before that. Let's assume for a moment that said conversation with Marvel took place a few months before April 4th. Assuming that that conversation with Marvel went well, and I think there's good reason to assume that, I think it's fair to say that Marvel and NetherRealm, in theory, could have enough time to set up Marvel as the next NetherRealm title. Those of you who know Ed Boon know that he is the king of trolling. For the most part, he doesn't lie, but he's constantly trying to play with your emotions. And I think he has the potential to tease things in the most opportune ways. For example, Jeff Keighley asking a pretty long-winded question about Mortal Kombat and whether Ed Boon still enjoys developing it. While Jeff Keighley is asking that question, Ed Boon could be thinking of all kinds of things in that brain of his. And I think he very well might have teased something.
And we have other stuff in the oven. It's like almost like Marvel.
We would love to make like a Marvel fighting game or Marvel versus DC. I think would be the coolest.
Have you ever had one conversation with Marvel about making a fighting game?
Yes.
Isn't it just a little bit weird that he would use Marvel as an example in the same question where he says that he's working on a new game, or that he implies that he's working on a new game? Now, that part might be a bit out there, and perhaps that doesn't plug into the theory here, but I have to say, Ed Boon's statement where he separates Injustice from the other stuff that's in the oven is enough to make me think that Injustice isn't as likely as I thought it was. And the conversation with Marvel on top of that is a little bit damning. In fact, it's damning enough that I truly believe Marvel has a real shot at being the next NetherRealm title. Now, to be clear, I don't think that Injustice is completely out of the running, but I don't think it looks good either. To be clear, the evidence we have in front of us for Marvel isn't particularly strong. Ed Boon's just talked about how much he would like to do it. However, my own conclusion, and I realize there's not a whole lot supporting that in this video, at least not directly, I think that NetherRealm did get the Marvel deal. In fact, I think it dates back to early 2018. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but there was this tweet from Ed Boon a very, very long time ago, back when Injustice was getting DLC characters. He tweeted, "Should Black Panther be in Injustice 2? Obviously, Black Panther is a Marvel character and not a DC character, and at the time we all just assumed that Ed Boon was joking. What if, because that conversation had happened all the way back in February of 2018, he was just thinking about that general possibility? He probably never actually had the conversation about getting Black Panther into Injustice 2, but it might have just been something he thought about after he had the conversation with Marvel about making a fighting game. That's a bit of a stretch. It's not particularly important for the theory here. It's just something I thought I'd mention. Now, from here, there's another important question to tackle. If they manage to get that Marvel deal, is NetherRealm going to make a Marvel game? Or were they magically able to get DC and Marvel both to come to the same table for Marvel versus DC? Honestly, I think it could go either way. A year from now, or 6 months from now, or however far out we are from the reveal of the next NetherRealm game, I think it could be an Injustice game. I think it could be a Marvel game. And I think it could be a Marvel versus DC game. I don't think any of these things are out of the running. What I will say is that I think Marvel versus DC is slightly more likely than Marvel on its own. Now, why do I say that? Well, we know that this conversation between Ed Boon and Marvel happened quite a while ago, at least 2019. I think that if Ed Boon was talking about their next game, a game that very well might be a Marvel project, if the people over at DC Comics weren't happy about that, I don't think they would have let Joker be in Mortal Kombat 11, which is probably already an internal fight that Ed Boon had to go through to make that even happen. Imagine going to the negotiation table and saying, "Hey, we would like to use Joker in Mortal Kombat 11. Oh, and by the way, we're not using any of your characters in the future. We just want Joker because after this, we're making a Marvel game." That just doesn't sit very well when you're trying to negotiate with companies, right? Don't get me wrong, it is certainly possible that the next game is just a Marvel game. But considering the relationship between DC, Warner Brothers, Marvel, and NetherRealm, I don't see how this could all come together and not be Marvel versus DC. If any developer on the planet could yoink the Marvel property or the Marvel IP right from under Capcom, it would be NetherRealm Studios. And what a power play, man. Imagine if we're actually getting Marvel versus DC. Imagine. Honestly, it's pretty hard for me to wrap my brain around, considering how well DC is doing right now. There would be no reason to not do a new Injustice game, and that's why I think Marvel versus DC is pretty likely. You know, I don't think NetherRealm would give up the opportunity to do another DC game. Now, Marvel's doing really well as well, but would they really, like, burn a bridge with DC just to do a Marvel game? I don't know. Well, maybe they wouldn't be burning that bridge. Maybe they would. I don't know. I don't know what that internal conversation would look like. Let me know what you think. Do you think that the next game's going to be Injustice? Do you think it's going to be Marvel? Do you think it's going to be Marvel versus DC? Or do you think it's going to be something completely different entirely? Right now, I think best money is on Marvel something. I don't know. I think they all have a pretty solid chance. We will see where we are 6 months from now, or a year from now, or however long it takes NetherRealm and Ed Boon to reveal the next game. Either way, I'm going to be there for it, and I hope you are too. Thank you so much for watching this video. This was a long one, and it took a lot of time and effort to edit, so I would appreciate a like and subscribe and do all that good stuff. My name is Bilbzy, and I'll be sure to catch you in the next video.